Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I frequently talk about microcoasters and how amazing they are in a variety of aspects. However, on almost every video I do on them I get at least a few comments saying that using microcoasters is no fun and is basically cheating. In my most recent video I built a few of them to increase the soft guest cap of the park and a lot of people complained about it. That inspired me to ask the question: is using microcoasters cheating? First things first, what exactly is a microcoaster? While there is no exact definition, I would say that a microcoaster is a very cheap and small roller coaster purely built to enhance your income, guest count or park value. They're not that good on their own, so they're often built in groups like I've done here. To see how good microcoasters really are, let's compare them to a normal design. This is Bumblebee, a medium small pre-built design that costs just under €6,500 to construct. Assuming it's the only looping coaster in the park, you can charge €13.20 for it, and it has a maximum throughput of about 2,200 guests per hour. The looping coaster raises the soft guest cap by 95, so a park with just this coaster in it can naturally support about that many guests. This is a micro looping coaster, which costs only €619 to build. We can charge $9 for it, and it has a maximum throughput of about 1,800 guests per hour. One of these is clearly worse than the Bumblebee, but what if we build more? 8 micro looping coasters, including the path, cost a few €100 less than the Bumblebee and roughly take up the same amount of space. Because we now have more than one looping coaster, the maximum ticket price and the park value that they provide goes down, so we can only charge €7 now instead of 9. Assuming that all the rides run at maximum capacity all the time, we can calculate their expected profit per hour. For the Bumblebee, this is 2,200 multiplied with 13.2, which is about €29,000 per hour. The 8 microcoasters will have a combined income of 1,800 times 7 times 8, which is about €100,000 per hour. In addition to that, they will also attract a total of 760 guests to the park instead of just 95. The bulk of the park value that a ride provides correlates directly to its stats, so these 8 micro looping coasters also give much more park value. One Bumblebee gives about 25,000, while the 8 micro loops combined give 4 times as much at 100,000. The other part is from how many guests have ridden the ride in the past 5 minutes, which is almost always higher for the microcoasters as well. Microcoasters are so strong that by abusing 2 different micro-looping designs I managed to beat Diamond Heights by reaching 10 times the required park value in only a third of the allotted time. So, it's clear that microcoasters perform better in pretty much every aspect, and not just by a little, but by a lot. Beating the more difficult scenarios like empty airfield is already not super difficult if you know what you're doing, but with microcoasters they become trivially easy and there is no challenge at all anymore. The scenarios weren't designed with microcoaster abuse in mind, so it also goes against the spirit of the game. You might as well just cheat in the money that you need, it's pretty much the same thing. Or is it? The fundamental question we have to answer here is, what is the proper way to play Roller Coaster Tycoon? If you play a scenario, is it only valid if you beat it without using microcoasters? What about using advertisements? They are just as overpowered in their own way, but almost no one seems to dislike using ads. What about small but not quite microcoasters, like this cheap and very efficient wooden coaster? It is still quite overpowered compared to a pre-built like Hardwood, but no one complains when I use this design. Ultimately, I think it depends on what your goal is. When I use microcoasters for ridiculous challenges like the crazy castle excavation, no one minds, as the challenge was clearly set with microcoaster abuse in mind. The same goes for challenges like this, where I try to get as many guests in year 1 as possible. The entire point of these challenges is to see how far microcoaster abuse can get you, so it's fine. For scenario play it is a little different. If you manage to barely beat Empty Airfield by abusing MicroCoasters but cannot beat it otherwise, you don't really get the bragging rights for beating it in my opinion. However, if you could beat it with normal coasters but are using MicroCoasters for fun and to see how far it gets you, like I did here, it's a very different story. So now for the big question that inspired this video. Is it really a shame that it only took 2 scenarios in my Marcel Plays RCT series for the cheesy MicroCoasters to come out? If you wish for this series to be a playthrough like it would have been done 20 years ago, then yes, that's true, but that's not what I'm aiming for. It is a casual playthrough series, but it is also focused on learning how to play the game efficiently, and MicroCoasters are a part of that. There is a bigger reason that I used them though, and that is that they allow me to make more money and build more things. If I didn't build any MicroCoasters, I would not have been able to build and more importantly decorate all the larger coasters. I could of course have used advertisements instead of MicroCoasters to get more money, but if it has the same effect then I don't see why it would be less cheaty. I'm not playing these scenarios just for the sake of beating them. I've completed all scenarios a long time ago already. I am playing them with the goal of building a nice park in the time it takes me to beat that scenario, and MicroCoasters allow me to build a nicer park and make a nicer video about it. There is also the option of using the MicroCoasters to make money and then removing them again later to build something prettier in its place, like this commenter suggested. I am not going to do that for 2 reasons. Firstly, the MicroCoasters are a part of beating the scenario, and removing them obscures the way that I earned all that money. The second and bigger reason is that I actually quite like how they look. I don't think they're ugly if used right. There is something industrial and cool about the way that neatly arranged MicroCoasters or flat rides look, and I think they integrate well into the park if used sparingly. For example, this bit of land would likely be unused if it weren't for the MicroCoasters, but now there's actually something there which looks neat and orderly and helps the park massively. Exploiting the game is basically the entire gimmick of my channel, and I will always keep doing it. This doesn't mean that I will use them in every park I will ever build for this series and other videos, but it does mean that I will use them whenever I need them. In conclusion, using MicroCoasters is fine as long as you are aware of how overpowered they are and don't go bragging just because you managed to beat a scenario by spamming 50 tiny corkscrews. That is of course just my opinion, and please let me know yours in the comments. It is perfectly okay to disagree with me and each other as long as you do it politely. We are just talking about a video game after all. If you want to watch the video I built these MicroCoasters in, click here. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.